theory and practice and overview, let me introduce the learned scholar, Dr. Sasisekaran sir. Sir started his career as a teacher from CNC College, Erode, and after his retirement, he worked at VIT, Vellore, and then Kongu Engineering College as professor and head. And apart from his being connected to academic institutions like CNC, VIT Vellore, and Kongu Engineering College, Erode, Sar has been actively engaging himself in a BEC examiner and then ELT examiner and other important assignments he gets from different parts of the world. A prominent ELT practitioner, Dr. Sasisekaran, has been instrumental in setting standard as far as ELT is concerned. And he also has got very good interest in literary theory and criticism also. And I still remember, not to what do you call, blow my own trumpet. Still, I remember he's coming all the way from Erode to Tanjavur to conduct my MPhil Vivos way back in 2003. And our agenda of today's meeting goes like this. Welcome address. It is almost over. And then I will be requesting Professor Sasisa to start his lecture, followed by a kind of interaction with the learned colleagues who have joined here. And then Dr. Kaviyarasu, Assistant Professor of English, Vivekananda College, Agasthiswaram. He has been the great support as far as the technical things are concerned. So he will say a few things about his forum, how he has been instrumental in arranging online platforms to many, especially from the COVID context, from COVID time or COVID-19 onwards. And then Dr. Senthil, my colleague, will propose the formal vote of thanks. Now I request Sir Sasisekaran sir, for your information. There are more than 1,000 members in this group. Right now we have some 40 plus who have joined, and they will also be able to view your lecture through YouTube soon after, whenever they have time. That's why Dr. Kaviyarasu has enabled the YouTube view also. And there are your friends like Dr. Varadharajan sir, Dr. Vijay Durai sir, Dr. Chandrasekaran sir, and Dr. Beulah from Meenakshi College, Madurai, and many prominent teachers have joined here, sir. Now I request you to start your lecture, and we are fortunate to have you here as the guest speaker, and then to throw light on different aspects of ELT, and which will be very useful to the research scholars who have joined here. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Good evening to all of you. Thanks, Varadharajan. Thanks, Senthil, and thanks to many of my friends who are this WhatsApp group. I'm really surprised to know that it has more than 1,000 members. I think I remember when it was started by you people, you started with small numbers. Obviously, it has grown into a very big academic group, and that's really very, very important to have so many teachers, college teachers, practicing teachers in one single group. That's something really wonderful, and I hope this group will make use of this platform for more interactions like this. So, ELT in 45 minutes, an overview. Going to be a bit challenging. There's so many things that one can talk about ELT. It's not that easy, as you all know. Secondly, most of you possibly are familiar with quite a number of things, either in theoretical linguistics or ELT theory. So don't get bugged if I'm talking about things which you already know. What I'm trying to do is put everything together, synthesize, and give you an overview about what's happening in the field of ELT. To start with, let's look at the global scenario, because ELT is a very big affair. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, in addition to being a very important field of academic knowledge system.
Sorry.
Nitya Devi, please unmute your audio. Yeah, she has done it. Dr. Nitya Devi, please.
Um, so there's an expanding demand for English language teachers all over the world. Um, if you look at the world language ecology, as we call it in social linguistics, you'll see that even though there are quite a number of global languages of power, as they are called, English, French, German, and things like that. Undoubtedly, English has emerged as the numero uno, so to say. It has pushed all other languages, and we see that there's no big competition for English. It has emerged as the number one language. And we are talking about world English. As quite a number of things have changed. If you look at uh, when you look at it from the post-colonial point of view, our perceptions about English, about learning English, about teaching English have gone through drastic changes at the global level. I'm not talking only about the national level. So, what is the change that we see? Perhaps it would be ideal if you look at what Braj Kachru has said about world Englishes. Possibly some of you would have already know. So Braj Kachru is a very popular social linguist of Indian origin. In 1985, he proposed the concept of world Englishes, which is a post-colonial view, which essentially means there are different varieties of English and different places where English is spoken, and you cannot have any puritanic or puristic notions about a particular variety being superior to others. So he spoke about world Englishes, many varieties, and for information, even native speaking countries have come to accept this reality. And nowadays, we don't talk about singularities. We don't talk that RP received pronunciation is the best pronunciation. It's not that we talk about a particular variety of English being standard English. All different varieties are accepted. All accents are accepted. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind. Accent, unless it's absolutely bad, accent is not given very much importance, and all accents are accepted as being natural. So, in that sense, what today's ELT focuses on is not about, of course, the standards are always there. It doesn't mean that the standards have been taken and thrown out through, as being not necessary. Standards are there, but the singularity has led to kind of um, multiple points of view that are being considered. So, what we consider as important in English language communication today is clarity. One has to be able to put across the ideas with clarity. It should be intelligible when it comes to pronunciation and accent and things like that. The most important thing is it should be intelligible. People should be able to listen to and understand this. That's the criteria. Correctness, of course, correctness of grammatical structures and lexis. Appropriacy. That is one important consideration we have. Appropriate means you need to use appropriate vocabulary in the first place. Range of vocabulary. Range is another important concept. So appropriacy and range. So using the correct structures, using the appropriate vocabulary as the context demands. These are the things that we are looking at in today's ELT, which all boils you can put together can be summed up in one word: communication. So this is the reason why so much importance is being given to communication. And if you look at the Western world, English, for example, in India, the you would have heard about the exam IELTS, International English Language Testing System. About 1.5 million students take these exams every year, either for studies abroad or for career abroad. I'm not an advocate. I'm not advocating these exams, but what I'm telling you what's happening. So about 15 lakh students take these exams in India, and you can imagine what would be the volume at the global level. So organizations like Cambridge, organizations like IDP Australia, British Council, who jointly own these kind of examinations. There are other players also like Pearson and others. So this is big business. And this big business, once it becomes a global business, ELT professionals are in great demand. That's the point I'm trying to tell you. So if you know what to do, if you get yourself certified in some way or the other, which I'll come to later. I'll explain that later on. You should understand that there are plenty of opportunities available for you to for career growth and for getting good income as well. So let us understand that old notions about correctness and purity and all these things have given place to the other concept of multiple varieties, multiple accents, multiple types of English and things like this. Is the obtaining global scenario as far as English language is concerned, as far as English language teaching is concerned. And English language teaching itself has become a big knowledge system. There is no dichotomy between literature, or very often people think that there is some kind of conflict between literature teaching and ELT teaching. It's not like that. There's no such dichotomy. Literature is different. Literature teaching, it focuses on a different aspect, and ELT focuses on a different aspect. If you want clarity about it, possibly you can consider this parallel. Supposing someone wants to learn spoken Tamil, wants to learn Tamil, I don't think you will start with Sangam literature or some of the classical literature of the rich classical literature of Tamil. I don't think you will be focusing on Tamil grammar. Of course, Tamil grammar is perhaps one of the most difficult grammars in the world, and most of us possibly we don't know Tamil grammar that much well. So what we focus is on communication, ability to the four skills of LSRW. And like I already pointed out, we need to focus on clarity, be it in writing or in speaking. Clarity and intelligibility. Forget about accent, forget about, but the pronunciation can't be awful, it can't be off the target. And correctness of the structures, can't afford to commit too many grammatical errors. And appropriacy, you need to use appropriacy in range. So these are the things that are considered at the global level. And if you're interested in knowing more about it, I would advise you to have a look at what is known as CEFR. Uh, Possibly, I'm sure that all of you would have heard about it, Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, which gives you the actual framework and the assessment scales for assessing language fluency at different levels. If you're familiar with it, you will know that there are 6 levels in CEFR: A1, A2, B1, B2, and C1, C2, which correspond to different levels of proficiency in the English language. And these are the scales that are used to make an assessment of English language proficiency at the global level. The assessment scales are available online. You can check CEFR, Common European Framework of Reference Assessment Scales. I'm very sure that some of you are already familiar with it. So these are the basic things that you need to become familiar with if you want to take up ELT very seriously, possibly integrate it into your teaching career and move on and become a specialist in that field. The opportunities are plenty, I assure you. So from there, let us move on to the other aspect. Before we become serious about teaching language, before we become conversant with the modern aspects of teaching the English language, let us become familiar with some of the basic notions in language theories. For one, I strongly believe that unless you have some basic rooting in theory, you're not going to understand some of the things that are happening. theory, you don't need to burn midnight oil and go on spending years together to master theory. The basic concepts, basic ideas that govern the business of ELT, you should be familiar with. Language as well as language teaching and language learning. So these are the three aspects that I'm going to talk about in the next 25 minutes or so. So I'll first let me talk about language theories. When I talk about theory, people usually theory puts us off. People think that theory is something abstract, and it's not like that. If you bother to look at the basic concept, you will understand that theory helps you a lot. Talking about theory, I'm reminded about a cartoon in that now famous seminal book by Barry, Beginning Theory. In Beginning Theory, there is a concept, there is a cartoon, Peter Barry. That cartoon says when a man meets another man and says, "Oh, you are a terrorist. Thank God. I thought you were a theorist." So that's supposed to be dig at theoreticians. So theory is not really that bad. Now let's start with one question. How do you understand language? Leave alone English. Generally speaking, there are supposed to be 6,000 languages and the language varieties all over the world. Or how do you understand language? How do you define it? You can type a few definitions that you can think of in the chat box. If you're interested, you can submit it. Possibly Dr. Professor, our friend there will keep a tab on that. Normally, we talk about language being an instrument of communication. It conveys our feelings and emotions, means of communication. Yes, that's good. Yes, definitely, it's a means of communication. That's the most important thing that we should keep in mind when we talk about it. So these are the kind of uh, uh, definitions that we are familiar with. But I would request you to go one step ahead and see what great linguists have said about language, how they have defined language. That's very important for language teachers. Maybe not for the layman, not for the others who use English in different capacities or different levels. But for language teachers, knowing these some of the important names and what they have said, how they have defined certain concepts is very, very important. For me, I still I admire a linguist called Ferdinand de Saussure, who lived and wrote during the later part of the 19th century and early part of the 20th century. Of course, these days we know that these notions have become a little obsolete. These are structural, they belong to the period of structuralism. But it doesn't mean that you can take and throw them. Every step in the evolution of knowledge systems is an important step. So, in that sense, Saussure's definition uh, of language being an arbitrary system of signs and symbols is something that is very close to my heart. I still believe that that's one of the finest definitions. It's an arbitrary system of signs and symbols. Signs, semiotic signs, which have signification, convey meaning. So they defined this as a system of arbitrary sign up system and signs and systems. So this is very important. You can check on it. I'm not going to talk too much about it because we don't have the time. So I would like you to make a note of Ferdinand de Saussure, Saussure. You can check it, Google for Saussure and find out what Saussure has said about how he has defined. Of course, these definitions and in post-colonialism, we say all definitions leak. No definition can ever be uh, uh, complete or comprehensive. Every definition, every single definition, it could possibly cover only one aspect of the thing that is being described. So Saussure's definition of language is something seminal. That's where it all starts. How do we understand language? And he made a very important distinction. young people can make a note of it. I think you would have studied it in your MA, possibly in your linguistics book. The distinction between lang and parole. That again is a shoes distinction. A language is the language system that's available to us. It's already there. We don't create, we add to it in terms of lexis and vocabulary. But generally speaking, the language system is already there. Parole is how we use it, language use. So communication relates to parole, and the existing language structures like grammar and syntax and lexis, and all these things belong to lang. This is one important definition. What is language? Language theory. From there, of course, there are so many theories subsequently who came and who elaborated on what Sashu said and built upon it. And that led to the arrival of Noam Chomsky. Chomsky is one of the greatest names in linguistics. Of course, he's very active socially these days. And of course, he's no more. And Chomsky's uh, uh, famous syntactic structures of 1957. He wrote that book in 1957 that built upon Saussure's distinction of language and parole. And he thought about these are all people who believed that language is biological. Language is neural. It is already there in our gene. That is something that has been subjected to revised estimations these days, because today we know that language is not only biological, it is social, it is psychological, it is interactive. So many aspects should combine together to create what is known as the language system. So Noam Chomsky's famous distinction is an extension of Saussure's lang parole, and Chomsky spoke about linguistic competence and linguistic performance. This is almost the same, but a little more elaborate. He talk about deep structures, grammatical structures already there in your brain. If you're talking Tamil, your Tamil structures are already in your brain, genetically transmitted. These biologists, biological linguists, they believed in that, structural linguists. So with the basic wired in structures, which are called the deep structures, we go on creating endless number of sentences and structures. That's called surface structures. So these are all very interesting things. Once in a while, you can spend some time. And of course, it's not like our times when you have to go in search of books and find books and read and take notes. So everything is available for you so easily these days. So you can check on Ferdinand de Saussure. You can check on Chomsky. I'm being very selective here, very, very selective, because there are so many great names there, and it won't be possible for me to talk about all that. The third name, there are hundreds of names, I tell you, but the third most important name is Delheim's 1972, Language and Society. Delheim's came up with what we today use very frequently, the expression communicative competence. Communicative competence, or the ability to communicate in social contexts, in different social contexts, which are necessary for language output. If there is no social interaction, if two people don't speak to each other, interact with each other, there is no language. Each one will be like Tarzan, the ape man in the forest. Even Tarzan had a language. He interacted with the apes and he picked up the language of the apes. So social interaction is at the root of language. This is one of the most important, vibrant, very relevant theories of modern times, on which communicative language teaching is built. So you can check on Delheim's 1972. Of course, before Delheim's, there were quite a number of very big theorists like Piaget and others. And all of them slowly, gradually, they moved on to bring about this society into the picture. So short and sweet, from the earlier notions of language being biological, language being embedded in our brains and in our genes, and the structures developing based on those deep structures. they moved on to the most important phase in language theory where society plays an important role, which the bottom line is that unless there is social interaction, there cannot be language output, language production. So this is the concept which has led to the creation of what we know today as communicative language teaching. I'll talk about communicative language teaching and some of the important aspects of CLT later on towards the end. So, to start with, I gave you a very brief description about the global ELT scenario. The second point I spoke about is language theories. What are the important theories? I spoke only about the most important theories. There are quite a number of them, believe me. So, language theory. How do we understand language? What is language? So we have to transcend the regular layman different definitions of being a tool for communication and a tool for communicating our emotions, feeling. All that is true, no doubt about it. But as an expert, as a language teacher, you need to transcend these levels and go to the higher levels and see what great linguists have already said about it. So the language parole distinction that was given by Ferdinand de Saussure and the linguistic competence and linguistic performance distinction that was given by Noam Chomsky. uh, Now I think you're seeing the similarity between these concepts, how one leads to another. Theory is like that. At one stage, something comes up, then it moves on to create a better interpretation, and then it moves on to create a still better interpretation, and like that. And finally, we have reached a stage where we talk about communicative competence. Lang and Parole are still there. The language system, say, for example, Tamil's system, you didn't create the system. The system is already there. It is already available to you, be it grammar or syntax or lexis or phonological feature, whatever it is. The language system has been well developed and given to you on a platter. That is the system, available system. How you use it? Not everyone uses Tamil in the same way. Each individual has a distinct and definitive way of using Tamil language. So the same way we use. Again, there is another difference between. I mean, the LSR skills also come into view. A person may be good at writing, he may not be that good in speaking. Someone who speaks really well may not be good at writing skills and things like that. So there is always a differential level of assessment that needs to be done for LSRW. That's why I spoke to you about CEFR. CEFR very clearly defines how to assess one's writing ability. Supposing if I ask you, how good are you in Tamil? You will say, I'm good. Your Tamil fluency needs to be checked. But unfortunately, we don't have this kind of assessment scales because our assessment most of the time is subjective. It is not well defined on the basis of rubrics. So CEFR gives you a very good tool. It's available on net. You can check CESR assessment criteria, analytical scales. Make a note of it. You can use the CEFR analytical scales and you can assess one's writing skills in English, speaking skills, listening skills, as well as writing skills. So this is how it has traversed a long path, has been traversed, so to say. And so let us move on from language theory, from global ELT scenario, we moved on to language theories. Now let us move on to language learning theories, right? Now we've seen what is language, how language operates. Of course, there is another important thing I forgot to tell you about in language theory. That's what's known as Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Again, these are structural notions and so much has been added to it and changed. But still, these are basic benchmarks, basic signposts, which we consider as very important. Linguistic determinism, linguistic relativity and linguistic determinism. That's a language theory, which says that language is at the root of all our cognitive understanding, cognition. How we see the world, how we interpret the environment, how we respond to cultural factors, how we establish social relationships. In all these, including your dreams, language plays a vital part. It's interesting to understand that even your dreams you can understand only in a language, through the medium of language. It's not always visual as we think. The dreams are visual at the subconscious level, but the understanding of the dream happens in your language all the time, consistently, continuously. So, linguistic determinism says that language determines several aspects of our life. Without language, we cannot possibly understand quite a number of things. That is linguistic determinism. Of course, that again has undergone changes. Like I said, all theories undergo changes. Subsequently, something else is added on to, is interpolated, and some new other interpretation comes up. But these are all, like I said, very important signposts and benchmarks. Linguistic determinism and linguistic relativity. You can check it out. So, from language theories, let us move on now to language learning theories. Do we have any language learning theories? You can respond in the chat box. What are the language learning? How do students learn English? How do they learn literature? How do they learn science or engineering or medicine or so many other things? So, what are the factors that are involved? What is the process that helps a person to learn something? Any responses? That's the time for me to have a sip of water. Good. Yes. Psychology. Wonderful. Task based. Yes. That's community CLT, task based. Content based. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, like I said, you're familiar with quite a number of things. Yes. Acquisition. Great. Great. Going to talk about it. So, language learning theories are related to quite a number of developments that have been taking place over a period of time, maybe about 100 years, 150 years. The earliest stage of language learning theory relates to what is known as behaviorism. You would have heard about it. The famous name Skinner, B.F. Skinner, an American linguist. And before that, Latin grammar teaching methods, grammar translation method. That's what we have been using for quite a number of centuries, so to say. Grammar translation method, which relates to behaviorism. Behaviorism, to put it short, there's so much to behaviorism. I don't think I can do just full justice but, by explaining it in a couple of sentences. But considering the time at our disposal, I would like to say that behaviorism basically believes in imitation and drill. You go on teaching something, people imitate that. You go on teaching active voice, passive voice, they imitate through drill, through exercise, through rigorous exposure and drill and reproduction, through a conditioned behavioral experience. Language is learned. That's what the behaviorism is. So that's what we all did. Active, passive voice. Rama killed the tiger. The tiger was killed by Rama. So it gets embedded in your mind. You try to reproduce. These are all related. Of course, Chomsky's generative transformational grammar also, in a way, it relates to that. Of course, they build upon it and they give additional interpretations. So behaviorism is the first learning theory that we have. And still, even today, it's not that, like I said, some of these old notions have been thrown overboard. It's not possible. They are always there because they only provided the basis, the foundation for further interpretations and new theories to come in. The old theories only give birth to new theories. It is the wheel, the old primitive wheel, which gave birth to the wheel of the aircraft. That is why theory evolves. That's how all knowledge systems evolves. So the first theory in language learning, please make a note of it, young people, is behaviorism. Just spend on half an hour to 1 hour and find out what is behaviorism, how it conditions learning, what are the kind of belief systems that the behaviorist linguists try to propagate, try to understand that. But at a certain point in time, people like Chomsky himself tried to revolt against this rigid theory of behaviorism, because this was related to old school of Latin teaching. Latin was the language that was taught in UK till the beginning of the 20th century. You would be surprised to know that the first professor of English was appointed in Cambridge University only in 1920 or something like that. Till then, they didn't have a full-time professor. Till the end of the 19th century, Latin was the language of power. It was the language of stature. It was the language of prestige. So this grammar translation method of teaching a language through grammar teaching and drilling and repeated exposures and making them translate from L1 to L2, these are the methods that were used in Latin teaching, and this is what behavior is also believed in. But slowly, things changed. It is not a simple process of input output. It's not that you put a sentence into the brain of a student and another sentence comes out. It doesn't happen that way. So there is some space there inside the head, the cognitive process. The cognitive process, it takes in what is given, it synthesizes it, it analyzes it, then it tries to regroup the words and set structures, and then it tries to provide something new, give something new. So this was made possible because of the new developments in the field of psychology. Somebody said psychology. That's very important. See, all these theories relate to not only theoretical linguistics, language theory, psychology, sociology, whatever developments happened in all these fields, they combine together to form theory. So ELT theory does not spring from the ground. It's not Suyambu. It doesn't come out from the earth. It comes out from different knowledge systems, different contributions, and Freud's findings and things like that. The inputs about the psychological inputs that were available for about language, how the brain works, how the brain processes language, linguistic input that is given. So all these things led to great new linguists like Fugere, the spelt Piaget, Piaget, pronounced as Fugere, and Vygotsky. These are all great linguists who brought in this concept of cognition. It is not merely behavior. Language learning doesn't happen only through behavior. Behavior is important, drilling is important, exposure to repeated things. That's what we talk about immersion in communicative language teaching. These are things important, but there is something that happens inside which you cannot ignore: cognition. Cognition is not related only to language. Cognition is related to life experiences, emotional experiences, your feelings, your social exposure, the kind of environment in which you grew up, the kind of language that you're exposed to right from your childhood. So many things combine together to make this cognition a process that's very, very complex. So linguists like Fugere and Vygotsky started talking about cognitive development, reasoning, intelligence, language, and memory. All these things they spoke about, and Vygotsky particularly brought in socio and cultural cognitive theory. You don't understand anything in vacuum. You are understanding your cognition, your ability to interpret the environment and the world around you is related to the environment in which you grow up. So the culture becomes important. You look at it from through the prism of culture, your own cultural experience, and social experience. What kind of social experience is that? So these things only led to Delheim's coming and talking about communicative competence. So they're all interrelated. They come step by step, gradually they come, and finally. So from behaviorism, we move on to cognitivism. From cognitivism, we move on to Delheim's and social cognitivism. So that is the learning theory paradigm. Behaviorism to cognitivism to social cognitivism. Now, once you come to social cognitivism, once you accept that society and social interaction is at the root of language production and language activity, you will start believing that language teaching cannot be a drill. It has to be activity oriented. That's why we talk about activity oriented learning. Activity oriented learning provides the scenario and the kind of background that is necessary for the students for social interaction, whatever is the level of interaction. That's a different story. Learner centeredness, which is an important artifact of CLT or communicative language teaching, is again related to this business of social cognitives. Without social interaction, the interaction between a group of students is social interaction. That social interaction will definitely lead to language production. And that is why CLT insists on activity-oriented teaching and learning, group activities, and learner-centeredness, the teacher being a facilitator, moving on from the lecture-oriented methods to interactive methods. That reminds me that we should have some interaction. Varadharajan told me that there could be some questions, but I don't know. Anyway, let me go at one go and try to finish at least a part of what I am trying to say. Like I said, this is a very huge area. You can give lectures at least for 10 hours, possibly. That's not the kind of scenario that we have. So we spoke about ELT and the global scenario. We spoke about language theories, where I spoke about Shashur and Chomsky and Delheims. Then third point, I spoke about language learning theories, behaviorism, cognitivism, from there social cognitivism. And like somebody pointed out, the psychological aspects are very important in language learning. And that's where I would recommend Stephen Krashen. Stephen Krashen is an important name in ELT, as you all know. Krashen possibly gave some of the finest interpretations in linguistic psychology. For example, his classification or his the dichotomy that he provided about learning and acquisition. That's one of the most important landmark concepts in ELT. Acquisition. If you have the kind of environment and the social milieu in which you live, you will acquire English. That's what happens to, yes, Stephen Krashen's natural approach and affective filters. He talks about affective filters. So this distinction between acquisition and learning is very important. So today, the schools in India, in Tamil Nadu particularly, they have moved on to the acquisition model, where English language is learned through continuous exposure. Children acquire English language in schools. Good, I mean, all these higher segment schools. But in a lower segment government schools, I'm not trying to undermine government schools. That's not my purpose. What I'm trying to say is that the atmosphere available, the social interaction that is available is not conducive for acquisition. So it puts the students in the learning process. So this learning acquisition process is something that you have to keep in mind when you talk about ELT. So most of our students, some of them have come from the acquisition stream, where they are good and fluent in English, But most of the students at the collegiate level today, I see they come from the learning stream where they have struggled to learn English language, where they have learned only reading and writing. The LSR, in the learning stream, LSRW is reversed. The natural process is L, S, or W. Mother tongue. That is the mother tongue paradigm. You listen, you speak, the child does that. Then it learns to read and write. But in the learning process, what we do in schools and colleges, we reverse this process. And in grammar translation method, what happens is that we start with listening, reading, writing, and yes comes at the end. Speaking comes at the end. So that's the problem with the grammar translation, GTM. It doesn't foreground speaking. It doesn't foreground. Foreground is grounding is an important concept in linguistics. You have to put in front. But in grammar translation method, in our own school classroom interaction, speaking is pushed to the background. Only the teacher speaks. Speaking is primary. Remember that in language, a modern understanding of language is that the old notions about writing being the purest form of language, all that is gone out. Now, what is the most important part of language? Speaking. Tamil has survived the onslaught of all these languages. It still continues to be a strong language, not because of the pundits and the pulavars and the literature. It's because Tamil language has been spoken by Kuppan and Subban and at the street level for a millennia. And that is the reason all these languages are surviving. Not only Tamil, most of the Indian languages and all the indigenous languages all over the world. So, the psychological barriers, Krashen talks about affective filters. I don't know how many minutes I have. Varadharajan, how many minutes can I take?
So you can take 15 minutes from now, sir. 1-5.
15, thank you. So, read about Stephen Krashen's. I'm not telling the senior people because some of you must be already familiar. I'm mostly addressing the young teachers, teachers who have come in. Check Stephen Krashen's learning theories, learning and acquisition model. Then you check for the affective filters. Once you know what these affective filters are, most of your confusion about language learning problems will dissolve. If you don't know these theories, what happens is we try to create our own interpretations. We think that's something original, something new. We don't stop to realize that somebody has already written exhaustively about it. That's why I am telling theory is important. If you don't read theory, you will be in a kind of self delusion, thinking that you are trying to find out something new. It's not like that. For example, in affective filters, Stephen Krashen talks about what are the problems in English language learning. What are the problems, psychological barriers and social barriers that students face. Very interesting things that he has defined it very clearly. Very clearly, he has defined. What are the negatives there? What are the negative filters? Negative filters are like anxiety. The language learner we use we don't at the international level, at least the post-colonial terminology, we use the abbreviation ESOL only these days. English for speakers of other languages. That's more respectful than English as a foreign language, English as a second language, and all. That's the kind of interaction. Yeah, yes, Senthil is right. Affective filter hypothesis, Krashen talks about motivation, self-confidence, anxiety. These are the negative filters, things which prevent students or pose challenges to English language learners, particularly from the learning stream, be it rural or urban. I don't believe in it. Urban centers also, there are people who learn and come. They don't have the opportunity of acquiring the language. Then what are the positives? Positive filters. Positive filters are high motivation. If you have high motivation, you will learn the language, any language for that matter. Self-confidence, good self-esteem, extraversion, ability socially interact. Again, the social interaction comes into. So the negative filters, like Professor Senthil has pointed out, you have anxiety, reticence. Reticence is an important word in psychological linguistics. Learners have reticence or reluctance or some kind of a thing that stops them, a kind of block which prevents them from coming out and trying to come to grips with all these things. Low esteem, introversion, language learning itself could convert an extrovert into an introvert. That's a very interesting thing that Krashen talks about. Some students, learners, we use the word learners, will be extroverts in the social interactions. But when it comes to language learning, they become introverts. All these reticence and anxiety and low self-esteem, all these things. So these are the psychological and social barriers that are there in English language teaching. Finally, let us come to the final part. How do we teach? Do we still continue with the grammar translation method where we go on teaching grammar repeatedly? Let's talk about grammar. Do we need grammar? Yes or no in communicative language teaching?
Yes, it is needed, sir, to an extent.
Yes, to an extent. But our approach to grammar should change. Instead of teaching grammar in a behaviorist way, we need to move on to what is known as functional grammar. Say, for example, I'll just give you one example. Youngsters can do this activity, not now, of course, we don't have time. Later on, you can do. Take a short story, a very small text. We talk about text. Whatever material you use in the classroom is not, it is best described as a text in international parlance. We don't use the words like lesson. You can use it. Nobody is going to punish you for that. But this, the word that is current and that is being used at the international level is a text. So you take some text which is modern, which is topical, which is interesting, which relates to the cultural and social experience of the students. That's very important. You can't take something that doesn't relate. Take a text. Say, for example, if you want to teach noun, okay, you give your definition, the age-old definition of noun being says this and that and all that. You give the definition, but the definition should come at the end. You take a short story of about 150 words, short story or a short paragraph or essay, and ask them to identify words which are names of things or places, or of course they won't be able to do in the first instance. They will find it difficult. Then you have a slide where when you show it, it will highlight all the nouns in the. Then you explain what an abstract noun, how abstract nouns end with the TION or SION or ERY or MENT, then things like that. But it all requires some kind of preparation, the right kind of material. So this is our perception about grammar. Not that grammar is being taken and thrown out. In communicative language teaching, what we consider as being most important is immersion and exposure, participation of the learner in a class of in a class of say 60 minutes. At least 15 minutes needs to be earmarked for some kind of interaction. Of course, it is difficult. There are practical difficulties and logistical difficulties involved in doing these things in the framework of university curriculum and university framework. But still, as practicing teachers, we can try something in our own classrooms. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can give some kind of activity and activity-based things you can do. Learning through doing an activity, task-based, as someone pointed out, functional grammar. And all these things need to be done in communicative language teaching, where you take a text, you can use it, the same 150 word text can be used for teaching grammar. It can be used for teaching syntax and grammatical structures. Everything is there in the text itself. You can use phrases, you can use pronouns, you can use prepositions, you can teach anything. But take one text and try to do this. This is an experimental way, not that that you have to do only like this. You can invent and create your own ways of doing this. So communicative language teaching, or CLT, is the name of the game these days, and that's what, of course, quite a number of colleges and universities have already transitioned to that phase. Of course, like I said, we have our own problems in bigger classrooms. Conducting activities could be a challenge, but you can slowly and gradually, in your own way, you can introduce these things into your classroom teaching. And the focus should be on foregrounding speaking. Speaking should be given top importance, primary importance. Even in post-structural readings, speaking is considered to be very important. I'll give you an example. How do you think the words in the Oxford English Dictionary or Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary, how these words or the corpus is created? How do you think this is created? Already created, it is there for quite a long time. What is the transition that has happened? Any inputs there? The transition is that in modern times, in the past 30 or so years, all these dictionaries, they have taken day-to-day language, spoken language, as an important input for creating their corpus. The old notion of the written English being the perfect model, written English being the correct model, is not valid anymore. Written language is important, listening is important, writing is important, speaking is very, very, very important. Once you speak a language, then writing and reading and other things become comparatively very easy. So communicative language teaching, it doesn't confine itself to any particular uh, method, any particular method or particular framework. It gives you that flexibility. It gives you that elasticity to create your own material, make use of the available material in such a way that it foregrounds speaking. Speaking activities are conducted here and there. Students are given a chance to break out of the shells and come out and speak or write, do group activities and things like that. You can give a picture and ask them to describe it in writing. You can ask them to do a mock parliament or mock interview and give them a chance to speak in classroom. All these could be 15 minutes activity. Group discussion is a very important, very vital component in speaking, in teaching speaking to students. So these are some of the things that you can do. There's no dichotomy between literature student teaching and ELT teaching. That is different where the focus is different. This is different where the focus is altogether different. So select the kind of texts and material that are required in CLT. Of course, CLT itself is a very, very broad, very exhaustive kind of knowledge system. We can go on talking about it. I've just touched upon what is considered to be very, very important. Perhaps it is the most important keywords, as you call them these days, is uh, learner-centric, activity-based, foregrounding speaking, and things like that. So let us conclude by saying this communicative language teaching, believe it or not, that is the thing that is being practiced all over the world. And they talk about what is known as the best. Is there one single best method? No. Whatever you consider is the best to teach, do all these things is considered the best method. That's considered to be the eclectic method also. So the materials matter, what kind of materials you use, the methods that you adopt in the classroom, that matters, is what's important. And the models that you take for yourself in the classroom also matters. So the keyword, ultimately, what we should focus in ELT is communication and the context in which it's done. So in today's context, business English is important. Students need to learn how to write good emails. They need to learn how to write good reports, things like that. how to respond to questions in interviews, how to participate in group discussions, how to speak in a group meeting, how to submit a small brief report on what they have done. These are the kind of functional aspects that are very, very important these days. And as teachers of language, we have to fine tune ourselves first. To fine tune ourselves first, we need to be conversant with the theories that are available to us. There are plenty that needs to be read. At least selectively, from what I have said, you can check all these some of the things that I have spoken about. Fine tune yourself, and that will help you to fine tune your performance in the classroom, and that will ultimately benefit the students immensely. So let me conclude. I think the time's up. Let me conclude by thanking Professor Senthil and Varadharajan. These two guys have been associated with me for quite a long time. Of course, there are quite a number of my friends here, like Vijay Durai and Chandramohan, quite a number of people whom I know. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. Perhaps I am one of the oldest in the group, the ancient mariner, perhaps in this WhatsApp group of 1,000. I'm very happy to be here interacting with you. And let me thank Professor Varadharajan primarily and Professor Senthil for giving me, creating this kind of a platform, this kind of an opportunity where we can interact like this. Let's hope that many more programs like this take place in the future. Of course, I would be too willing to take one or two more sessions for the benefit of the young learners, young teachers in this group. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your spontaneous overflow. And nowadays we have been missing these elements in the academia. Right from the very beginning, you stole the show with your gift of the gab, and also you never failed to do your homework, having something on your right side and checking to make it quite a chronological.
Yes, I do prepare
Sort.
notes. I do prepare notes.
Yes. And
The
to
brain doesn't remember everything. Keywords and key phrases I need to note down. That
yes.
helps. All teachers should do that.
20 years back, the voice I heard still it is heard, sir, in the same tempo and vibrancy.
Thank
Thank you very much. Here, sir, to a surprise, we have many VIP teachers like Professor Elango, former English professor, HOD American College, Muttami Chalvi ma'am of SFR College, HOD English, and Dr. Rajesh from Madurai Kamaraj University English Language Studies, Head
Oh,
of Department.
yes.
Professor Uday Kumar. Plenty of them are there to listen to you since you have been the authority. Now I start the interaction, sir. I request Dr. Rajesh of MKU to actually say a few things about what you listen to. Dr. Rajesh, are you there?
One
Kindly.
second, Varadharajan. Before the vote of thanks, I would like to say if there are any questions that people have, young
Yeah,
teachers, they can send them questions to you, and you can
they
forward. I
will.
would be happy to respond to them.
Now, I have requested Dr. Rajesh to ask you a question or to give his feedback. That's all.
Okay,
I have not
okay,
come to vote of thanks now, so I will never come. Don't
okay,
worry.
okay, okay, okay.
Dr. Rajesh, are you there? Kindly unmute and say a few things since you have been ELT HOD for a couple of years. Dr. Rajesh, unmute yourself and then talk, please. Ilango sir, Dr. Vijay sir, you have joined. Thank you. Can you unmute and talk? Vijay Durai sir, unmute yourself and say a few.
Unmute.
No, you have unmute and talk.
Yes, sir. See,
Thank
I'm
you.
in a
Thank
hill
you.
station and in my daughter's quarters, I'm in a hill station, so the signal there is a problem. That's why I was struggling to show my face.
Thank you. Thank you for joining, sir. Though you have been
Right,
associating
sir.
with the sir for a long time, coming here and
Right, sir. Thank you.
sharing your things, it is quite great. Say a few
Yes.
things about what you listen to, sir.
It was wonderful. As always, it was a pleasure to listen to Professor Sasisekaran, and he has given a comprehensive view of the ELT scenario, right from the origin of language and approaches and methods, as well as the latest means like CLT. In fact, he was a man who first introduced me the term functional English some 10 or 15 years ago. And I went went in to see what was that. And it was a practice, a practical aspect of CLT. So I must thank Professor for having refreshed my memories and also made me feel nostalgic of my association with him as well as with English. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you,
Both,
Vijay.
so both of you
Yes.
never look like retired teachers. Tell me the secret behind that. That is
Don't. The secret is don't look like a retired teacher. Keep doing something. Keep doing something. Keep working. Keep working. You will
Yes.
stay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Ilango sir, are you there, sir?
Yeah.
Ilango sir, please. American College HOD, sir. Ilango sir.
Yeah, I'm happy, Professor Ilango. I heard about him. I'm very happy. People like senior people
Yes,
like him are there in the group listening to my presentation.
Yes.
Good evening, Ilango sir.
Yes.
Ilango sir, are you there?
Yeah.
Sir, can you say a
We
few
were
words?
fortunate to have him.
He
Yes, we
joined,
were
but
fortunate to have him
he joined,
just
but
before my retirement.
his number is not, his name is not found here, sir. I think he has
Okay.
quit.
Okay. Must have left.
Yeah.
Must have
Adagarasan sir,
left.
Adagarasan sir, can you say a few things? Unmute yourself and say, sir. Adagarasan sir of Salem 7.
Yes. After some 38 years,
Yeah, you can open your video, sir. You can unmute your video, please, and then talk.
after nearly 36 or 7 years, I listened to the academic performance of our professor, Dr. Sasisekaran. The same voice, the same same intonation, same pass, same content, right? Like age cannot wither him. Like Cleopatra, he is an academic Cleopatra. Yeah, and it is quite consummate, putting hundreds of medicine in a tube. Too many things put together and give a pill like that. His 1 hour presentation is so consummate and highly insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Alagarasan. Thank you, Alagarasan. Nice.
Thank you, sir. Madam Muttamichali, ma'am, do you want to say something, ma'am? HOD SFR College, Sivagasi, ma'am. Muttamichali, ma'am, are you there? Dr. Lakshman Jogan, do you want to say anything, sir?
Yes, sir. If you could spare some time for me, I would.
Please introduce yourself and then talk, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I am Lakshman Jogdand, actually from Maharashtra, a small place in Maharashtra. And I just saw this link you provided in the group, and I thought of joining it. And it was a treat to me, sir. It was really wonderful. I mean, I am very interested in English language teaching, actually. I've studied it in depth. But as I was going through the lecture, I was really happy to listen to Sir as he was telling everything in detail. I actually, I mean, it was aligned with the things that theories and practices have been going on. So it was perfect all the time. And I also know you, Varadharajan, sir, just by name, not personally, but by your name I know you. And this was really a wonderful lecture, very well aligned with the theme. And I was trying to give inputs as much as possible as I could, because I know when you are delivering a lecture and people are listening to you, sometimes we tend to forget a few things and divert ourselves. So I was trying to give, and I know a few things about ELT, but I think this was a very well aligned lecture, fantastic one. I mean, and it has given me certain inputs about Sir's understanding about the English language teaching. Of course, there are the problems with the certain areas, and the teaching, of course, differs according to the areas, because you have to have your own strategy. That's what Sir actually spoke at last about it. That is eclecticism. So one has to be eclectic while dealing with your students and everything, because it's actually a foreign language to us, and it's really difficult to learn a new language. I mean, it's really a problem for all of us, and we need to understand that, and we need to have that feeling in our minds while teaching our students that it's really difficult to acquire a new language, because we've been spending whole of our life in learning our own language, and here we are trying to acquire a new language. That becomes really difficult. We have to be patient, understanding, and we have to be about everything that our students do. That's the only thing I would want all the teachers here to understand, that we should be understanding that it's really difficult, and if it has to come, it will come in its own way. That's it. This was a wonderful lecture, and I was really happy to listen.
Thank you.
Thank-
Thank you, Professor. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshman.
Audience, anybody want?
Of course, Dr. Varadharajan sir, I'm Sivakami from VIT Chennai.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. You
I
are
have,
audible.
okay. I need some clarification. Before that, I want to appreciate the lecture because it's wonderful, really. There is no doubt on it. He has given, detailed information. In fact, I should say.
Yes, proceed, ma'am. You have joined us, Chant, right? You unmute yourself and then talk, please. Please unmute and talk, ma'am. Sivagami, ma'am, from VIT.
Okay. Sorry. I think you must have heard whatever I said before this. I'm not sure about it. Should I repeat everything?
No,
Should I repeat?
just give 1 minute
Of
feedback.
course, wonderful lecture. There is no doubt on it. In fact, we come to know, how it evolved, theories evolved, and where it lead to, where it leads to, and led to. That's what I wanted to know from him, and he said everything very clearly. The thing is, from my experience, I think students are capable. Some of the students, at least a few students, they are capable of speaking well, but while they're writing, they're making so many mistakes. Why it happens? Because Sir mentioned here, once a person is able to speak, then he could write well. Everything else will come relatively easy. But I don't think so. Some of the students, they are able to speak well, but while they're writing, they're making many mistakes. I don't know how we can, make them write well as
Yeah.
well.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a very valid point. I said what I meant is that when you speak well, it becomes easy to learn the other aspects of a language well, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those who speak well can write well, because writing focus more on accuracy. So the best thing for you to do would be to take these students who are doing really well and make an assessment of their skills, speaking and writing and listening and reading. You can use these IELTS or any of the other person assessment material that's available on online. Give them a diagnostic test and find out how they fare in writing and find out where they go wrong. Is it in grammar, or is it in discourse management, or is it in vocabulary? You need to find out what are the areas where they commit mistakes. And this will help you. Writing, because writing basically it revolves on cohesion and coherence. You know about all these things.
Yeah,
So you must see where the cohesion aspects, structural aspects, they may be faulty, be it grammar or so you can give a diagnostic test and find out where they go error and do some remedial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Professor. It may take time, but I need to do. Otherwise, I can't even.
Yes, yes, it definitely
need
it is
to.
very difficult because I too worked in VIT. I know what is the kind of
Oh, okay, Professor.
pressure, work pressure you have. Of course, we can always do it. In between, don't just spend some time and frame a short diagnostic test and do it, and the students will find it very interesting. Believe me.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is anyone wanting to ask any question to sir? Then I request Dr. Kaviraj to say a few things about this forum before I request Dr. Senthil sir to propose the vote of thanks. Over to Dr. Kaviraj. Thank you.
Yes, sir, am I audible? Yeah, okay.
You are audible, sir.
Yeah, good evening, esteemed colleagues and fellow scholars. I deem it a great pleasure to be part of this online lecture on ELT theory and practice and overview, organized by Professors of India, Tamil Nadu WhatsApp group, convened by Dr. C.S. Senthil and Dr. T.S. Varadharajan, Assistant Professors of English, Thiagarajar College, Madurai. So, first of all, I would like to appreciate and thank Professor T.S. Varadharajan, a learned scholar and an academician whom I admire a lot, for the noble task he has rendered converging the professors of English in Tamil Nadu under one roof through the WhatsApp group. More than 1,000 members from Tamil Nadu. Of course, it is something which is very hectic to maintain and manage that. So it's been a platform where we establish our friendship network and uphold our academic acumen. He himself has contributed to the liveliness of the group by leading various literary discussions, and at times I have found him tactfully handling various issues. So that's really great of him. And I would also like to applaud him for taking pains in convening this lecture, because when he first said that, sir, we are going to have a lecture by this eminent person, yeah, I readily said that I'm okay for this collaboration, because he always want to do something to the betterment of the society, and of course for the students and faculty members to update themselves. So that is something which I admire him, and I'm happy to be part of this program to witness the lecture of the eminent resource person, Dr. T. Sasisekaran sir, who wonderfully deciphered the language theories and language teaching theories in the era when perceptions of learning and teaching English has changed. He has wonderfully traced the evolution of ELT. Thank you, sir, for the power-packed lecture, first of all. So at this juncture, I would like to say a few words on Dr.KK Forums. Dr.KK Forums is a non-profitable academic forum formed to promote quality higher education towards research excellence. The forum was founded in 2012 to share academic expertise and taking conference notifications to English scholars across the nation through Dr. KK seminars and conferences. The forum then evolved into Dr. KK Research Forum, focusing multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary research, and Dr. KK English Forum, exclusively for English language and literature. The forum provides a space for professional and academics to connect, collaborate, and potentially create partnerships or research opportunities. We can find Dr. KK Forums also providing access to repositories of resources such as teaching material, lecture notes, scholarly articles, and other educational tools based on their demands. And in the post-COVID scenario, Dr. KK Forums started rendering technology-enabled assistance and collaborating with other institutions, hosting academic resources like webinars, conferences, and workshops, both online and offline modes. So so at this juncture, once again, I am happy that I have collaborated with Dr. Varadharajan, my dear more friend, at this juncture. And once again, I thank one and all for being part of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kavir, sir, for your talking about your forum. And without this forum, what happened? The great lecture by Dr. Sasisekaran sir can be listened to by anybody after this meeting gets over. One Dr. Angeline from Jayarajan College was telling me about her listening to this through YouTube. And one of my students, Dr. Asha Shirin of 2nd MA, told me about her listening to it after some time as she was traveling. So you provided YouTube link and it was recorded also. So anyone who happens to listen to this lecture will thoroughly get benefited in terms of the basics. And SAR actually appealed to everyone to have an eye on CLT. And I heard some years back about CLT became obsolete or something like old kind of a thing. Now from it comes straight from the horse's mouth that whether we talk about what do you call fluency or accuracy, CLT becomes the order of the day kind of a thing, sir says. Thank you very much, sir, for your lecture once again. Now I request my colleague, Dr. C.S. Senthil, to propose the vote of thanks. We had 40. After your lecture, it was only 22, sir. People have gone. So they no longer want us to say anything about what actually we have to say. Dr. Senthil, sir?
Just one word before Senthil starts his. I'm happy
Yes,
to notice that my daughter from Bangalore has joined this group.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
She's
What's her name, sir?
Samyukta Sasisekaran is there very much listening, possibly.
Fine.
Seeing the father. And that's just for information. I'm happy about it. Yes, Senthil, sir. Please carry.
She must be all the time with you, sir, and she is a lucky doctor, no doubt about it. we are like your kids also, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Senthil, sir.
Good evening to all. I deem it a privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this online lecture on ELT theory and practice and overview, organized by the WhatsApp group titled Professors of English, TN or Tamil Nadu. At the outset, my sincere gratitude goes to the most respected guest speaker, Dr. T. Sasisekaran sir, former professor and head Department of English, Chikkaiah Naicker College, Erode, Tamil Nadu, for having accepted our invitation and delivered a lecture on ELT theory and practice and overview. A distinguished ELT practitioner and a Doan in the fields of literature and linguistics too have helped him render a talk on ELT and its current state at the global level. The resource person, Dr. T.S. sir, focused on Englishes, communication, clarity, intelligibility, CEFR levels of proficiency, we call analytical skills, etc., that have gained momentum in the 21st century. There is no doubt about it. The IELTS-like exams happen across the world, and lakhs of students or takers take up these exams to study abroad and go abroad. That is another avenue created. He also talked about beginning theory by Peter Barry, Ferdinand Saussures' definition of language, definition of Lang and parallel, Noam Chomsky's syntactic structure. Language is, he said, language is biological. And we also know there's a term called bioprogram by James Asher, professor of psychology, who developed TPR, total physical response, then linguistic determinism, relativity, language learning theory, behaviorism by Skinner through imitation and drills, cognitive theory, socio-cultural theory, activity-oriented learning. Then Stephen Christians elaborated the natural approach in which we discuss the acquisition or learning hypothesis, input hypothesis, effective filter hypothesis, various methods, CLT, immersion and exposure or participative learning, and eclectic method. These are the areas within a short span of time our chief guest, our guest speaker has thoroughly elaborated on. Thank you, sir, for having thrown light on all the important aspects of ELT in a short period of time elaborately. Thank you so much, sir. Secondly, I record my sincere thanks to the most esteemed senior members and teaching fraternity of this WhatsApp group for their constant support, especially Professor V.G. Chandramohan sir, Professor N. Vijay sir, Professor Alagarasan sir, Professor Ilango sir, Professor Lakshman Jagnan sir, Professor Beulah ma'am, Professor Rajesh sir, Professor Vinod Kumar sir, and so on. The list goes on. Thank you all, my dear professors. Thirdly, I wish to thank my beloved colleague and friend, Dr. T.S. Varadharajan, Assistant Professor of English, Thiagarajar College, for making this platform a befitting niche for us, and welcome the gathering and introduce our resource person, Dr. T.S. Sir. Thank you, Professor. Subsequently, I sincerely thank Dr. K. Kaviyarasu, Assistant Professor of English, Vivekananda College, Agasthiswaram, Kanyakumari, Tamil Nadu, under Dr. KK Forums, who has been instrumental in making this online program a successful one. Without your forum, I guess, we wouldn't have organized this lecture so in a befitting manner. Thank you so much, sir. Finally, I thank all the members who have participated in the online lecture and the support rendered throughout. Thank you all once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Thank
your
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Thank you, Kaviyar. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir. Bye, sir.
You all, sir.